Here are some artifacts of the canopic jars that G.O.A.T was known to protect. As you can notice, in this pair of canopic jars, because sometimes they switch up, there is the god Haru or Horus, the falcon god. There's an Egyptian king head. There's a baboon head, and there is the head of the god Anubis. All right, and like I said before, the Egyptians would place their body parts in these jars and preserve them because a lot of Egyptians believed that they were going to raise again in the afterlife, and their body parts needed to be preserved. So these are the jars that G.O.A.T protected. There they are, right there, full color. The piece of pottery that I showed you earlier of the Scorpion King, if you notice, he was wearing this type of helmet or this type of headdress that represents Upper Egypt. The other piece of headdress or helmet or crown was known to represent the rulership of Lower Egypt. Alright? And it's the reason why I'm showing you this. Because the next king in line after the Scorpion King, his name was King Narmer. Quibble, the archaeologist or Egyptologist from Britain that we talked about, he found another piece of archaeological evidence. He found another artifact that was very important. And the king that followed the Scorpion King was on a pallet that they found. Alright? And they found this pallet between Upper and Lower Egypt. And on this pallet, King Narmer was wearing both crowns. He was wearing a crown of Lower Egypt, and he was wearing a crown of Upper Egypt. That was fascinating to me. But what the palette represented was a unification of Lower and Upper Egypt. And that is when the first dynasty was born. Now, in one of my lectures, I talked about psychology. And I talked about how do you think as an African American. Alright? And this is a great example of why I taught that class. Here we have a movie that Hollywood released called The Scorpion King. And we all thought they were just making up characters. Usually when Hollywood do something, they're not making up anything. Part of it is true. Now, they had The Rock portray the Scorpion King. They had a European woman portray another character. And finally they have a brother playing another character, which I think he should have played the Scorpion King, because as we seen in the piece of pottery, that piece of pottery looked more like the African American actor than The Rock. But because they try to Europeanize everything, this is what they cast came up with. See? The average African American that went to go see this movie didn't even know that they were actually talking about a king. The Scorpion King, King Silk, that we just showed you on a piece of pottery. This is a real king that actually existed. So they made a fictional movie about a real person. They know more about your history than you do. Why is that? That's sad. Well, that's why I'm teaching this class. As boring as people may think it is, as much as people tell me I'm wasting my time, if they can get this in your head psychologically, this is what you're going to think. And there's no way Europeans could have survived in the hot sun and built all those great things and ruled during that time. There's no way. Without getting sunburned, without getting skin cancer, without getting something. So this picture alone, here you got 1, 2, and I even want to call it a rock European, 3 Europeans portraying some people that actually existed. Alright? So that's where they got that concept from. And this is a great example, once again, I want to reiterate, on how we are being brainwashed concerning our culture, concerning our history, and how they're trying to make our history European like they're trying to do today, and how they're trying to basically say in so many words and in so many pictures that Africans or people of African descent didn't have anything to do with the start of civilization. That's basically what they're trying to tell you. And that's why I'm teaching this class. to let you know that that's not true. This is a pre-dynastic artifact. I just didn't want to show you one. I wanted to show you two. And this artifact, to me, represents an African woman. As you can see, her nose. As you can see, her breast. You can see her hips. This is how women of African descent are shaped. And what I like about this artifact is, as you can see, it's showing emphasis on her vagina. And if you look at it real close, to me, that looks like a pyramid. Now, I can interpret this piece of art how I want to. And I'm only going to give my opinion. This is not factual. But understand, the pyramids were known as tombs back then. So we all come from our mother's vagina, right? So this is basically, to me, the reason why they, made pyramids was basically an upside down vagina, where life comes from. So when you die, basically it's saying you're going back to where you came from. You see what I'm saying? So that looks like a pyramid to me. And this is pre-dynastic. That's why it's hard to believe that the step pyramid is the first pyramid. I don't believe that. Because this is a pre-dynastic piece. Alright? So the pyramid represents death, but it also represents life. Because understand something. The Egyptians believed that when you die, that was the beginning of your life. Okay? They had a piece of literature called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, where archaeologists and Egyptologists call it the Book of the Dead. Really, it was called the Book of the Coming Forth by Day, because they believe that's when life began. So life began on earth with you coming out of your mother's womb. And I believe that that's what this bust represents. So I had to show you that. Now this is a bust of King Narmer. Okay, I gave you the definition of who King Narmer was. He was known as the Horus King. Horus was a god, or Heru, I want to call him by his proper name. Heru was the falcon or hawk god. He had a falcon head and a human's body. This is a bust of King Narmer. He was the king after the pre-dynastic king, the Scorpion King, King Selk. So here's a bust of him. Okay, as you can see, this is a real artifact. This man really existed. He was known as the first king. He dates back around 5,000, 4,000 BC. Here he is right here. As you can see, he has African features. Look at his lips, look at his nose, look at his ears. He looks like a true African. Okay, you can see he's wearing a crown. Okay, this is not an artifact, this is just a picture that somebody digitally put together of the god Horus. Alright? Some people say that the story of Jesus is similar to the story of Horus or Heru. You can go look that up yourself. But King Narmer was known as one of the first kings that was lineage from this god. Alright? They believe that one time that this god actually ruled Egypt, and King Narmer was basically, King Narmer descended from this god. You know, the same way we do today. Alright? The same way Jesus had a bloodline in the Bible, where they believe some of the kings that actually existed had a bloodline, and they had a godly history too. So this is the god right here, the god Horus. And as you can see, he had a falcon head. He's wearing the Upper Egypt crown, meaning he's ruling Upper Egypt. He's holding an ankh in his hand. As you can see, it looks like a cross, except for it has a circle at the top instead of a straight line. And that ankh represented a key, and it is the key of life. This is where they got the idea of the cross from. Alright, so I just wanted to show you a picture of the god Horus. Okay, just to let you know that the god Horus is more tangible than any god that I was raised to believe, this god actually had a temple, and in front of one of his temples, this is him once again. This time he's in full falcon mode. And there's a statue in front of his temple, and he's wearing the crown of Upper Egypt once again. And this represents the Horus falcon. As you can see, they gave great honor to the gods that they believed in back then for whatever reason. But they have more temples and more artifacts to back up their gods than any other major religion that we know today in America, which is Islam and Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism. No other religion has any artifacts to back up anything in their belief system more than the ancient Egyptians. As a matter of fact, most of their concepts came from ancient Egypt. And this is an example.